G'day, mate. 40 here, looking at the Washington Post. Absolutely heartbreaking story here. Top of the Washington Post right now. In wake of Ralph Yarl shooting, black teens face fear and resignation. So the Ralph Yarl shooting, that's Ralph showed up at the wrong door. And when he banged, I don't know the full context of everything that he did when he knocked on the door, but he ended up getting shot by a white homeowner. And so if you look at this homeowner, you can see the guy badly needs Alexander technique. He's 84 years of age. Look, he's stuck in that fight or flight reflex. So if you go through life stuck in that fight or flight reflex, where you've got no length with your neck, no freedom in your neck, you're just hunched forward, right? You're out of alignment, right? When you're in fight or flight, you're going to either fight, or you're going to fight, or you're going to freeze, all right? Or you're going to try to plead and try to disarm people, but it's not really a good way to go through life. And then the other guy who shot a white woman who just drove up the wrong driveway, his name's Kalen Gillis, and you see no neck, all right? His head is just pulled back onto his spine, so not a lot of freedom in the neck. So it's hard to have freedom in your life, freedom in your emotions, freedom in how you make choices, all right, when you've got no freedom in your head-neck-back relationship. But anyway, this Washington Post story is just ridiculous, right? Here's the headline. In wake of Ralph Yarl shooting, black teens face fear resignation. Okay, so from whom do black teens most have a fear and resignation? All right, so if they get shot, the odds are about 90% that they'll be shot by someone who's black, all right? The odds are about 88% that they'll be shot by a black male. Probably the odds are about 80% that they'll be shot by a black male in his teens, 20s, or 30s. All right, so black women aren't going around shooting people. Old black people aren't going around shooting people. Black infants aren't going around shooting people. Right? To the extent that blacks in America have to fear getting shot, have to overwhelmingly fear getting shot by a subsection of their own community. Right? But this article wants to play up that this particular sixth grader, Justin Monroe, knows that not all cops are actually going to help you in the situation that you're in. Well, guess what? For white people, for brown people, for Latinos, for Jews, for Muslims, not all cops are going to help you in any situation that you get into, all right? Not all cops are going to be wonderful. Now, groups, tribes, communities, they develop reputations, and those reputations will have a significant effect on how willing police and other people are to help you or to hurt you. So to the extent that this 84-year-old man who shot Ralph Yarl was frightened by the image of a black teenager showing up on his doorstep, that was primarily, I would suspect, not a result of that man's bigotry, racism, irrational fears. That was primarily the result of horrific behavior by a tiny subsection of the black community. So just like Muslims have become associated with terrorism in the eyes of most non-Muslims in the West because of the horrific behavior of a very tiny percentage of Muslims, so too the horrific behavior by a tiny subsection of blacks in committing astronomical amounts of murder and other forms of, grievous violence. All right, they have made people afraid and hostile towards blacks. So this problem, just as it is with every group in America of which I'm aware, is primarily an intergroup problem. It's an intergroup problem, not an intergroup problem. Problem is not cops primarily, right? And talks about this black mom has had the talk with her son, the somber conversation about the special rules that they must adhere to when talking to police, where to place their hands when pulled over in a traffic stop, tips on how to avoid becoming a target. I would think the opposite. If black men in particularly young black men who are pulled over by police, if they simply adhered to the same rules as everybody else, they would be less likely to get shot. So not a good idea to fight with people who have guns. Not a good idea to disrespect people who have guns. Not a good idea to disrespect people on social media or in rap lyrics or in music videos. People who have guns, whether those people are police or not police, people have guns. If people have the power to hurt you, it's not a good idea to disrespect them. So if you simply treat them with the appropriate level of respect, of anyone that you'd give to who has the power to hurt you, you are much less likely to get hurt. People are more likely to think that black young men are dangerous, they're told, so be careful. So yeah, if your group gets a reputation, then that's going to affect you, right? In Anglo-Saxon countries, we tend to think of people as primarily individuals. But the way the world works is that outsiders do not primarily see us individuals. When I walk down the street wearing a yarmulke, most people do not see me as an individual. They see me as an Orthodox Jew. And feelings they have about Orthodox Jews or the Jewish state of Israel, right, they're very likely to translate to me. Right, so people will yell at me about Israel. They'll yell at me about Jews controlling the Federal Reserve, stuff like that. When I walk down the street, it has absolutely nothing to do with me as an individual. But a new fear is creeping into the talk in the wake of the shooting of a black teen in Kansas City, Missouri. There have been tearful conversations, new rules about interacting with strangers, and a sense of resignation. So parents say black children, particularly boys, are at risk. Yeah, they are at risk. And they're primarily at risk from other black boys and black young men, right? They're not primarily at risk from nasty, racist, vicious non-blacks, right? This is primarily an in-group problem. It's not primarily an outer-group problem. So Jason Kessler is discouraged by his in-group. So apparently Jason Kessler, the organizer of Unite the Right, apparently he's stepping back from political activism. After 7 years as a political activist, journalist, and commentator, I am retiring from public life to focus on other hobbies. So I didn't notice a widespread feeling of grief in reaction to this commentary. Over the better part of the last year, my baby has been working on the Happenings video program for you guys. I put as much effort into it as I have anything that I cared about, from attending college to starting a business or writing a book. I hope to use the platform as a way to move myself beyond the specter of Charlottesville and build a devoted following who could help me achieve political goals. So what made him think that he had a devoted following? I was never aware of Jason having a devoted following. But when the computer I needed to broadcast my program crashed, I required help to defray the cost of purchasing a machine to continue my work. So yeah, it's a good idea to live within reality and to notice when people are supporting or not supporting you. I was never aware of Jason Kessler having a devoted following. So I see this, with all sorts of people who assume that they have a much more devoted following, that they are providing much more valuable services than they really are. Almost all of us tend to have an exaggerated sense of our own importance. And Jason Kessler has apparently run smack dab into the face of reality, and it's shaken him up. Says, I hope to use the platform as a way to move myself beyond the specter of Charlottesville and build a devoted following who could help me achieve political goals. Well, was that ever realistic, that Jason Kessler would build a devoted following who would help him achieve political goals? But when the computer I needed to broadcast my program crashed, I required help to defray the cost of purchasing a machine to continue my work. After almost a year, I felt I'd reached a sink or swim moment where I should no longer be expected to spend my own money for costs associated with working for the public. So yeah, one great way to gauge your importance is how much money do you make from your live streams? How many donations do you make? How many members do you have to your channel? How many views do you get to your videos? A pretty good indication of your relative importance. So I have relatively low viewership, relatively low, financial support. And so I don't expect anything from you. And I do this for fun. So this is, I think, a pretty clear relationship. You never disappoint me because I don't expect anything. Objectively, Happenings and I sank. That's what happens when you go into conflict with reality, all right? Whenever you fight reality, reality always wins. Only one person donated, and though I am heartbroken, this is an objective metric I cannot deny. I would think that this is the best decision for Jason Kessler and people like him, like to move away from political activism. Very few people are really cut out and benefit from a life of political activism. If I haven't inspired your loyalty and devotion after all these years of sacrifices, if I can't convince you that what I'm doing is worth even $1 to you, then there is no hope of us accomplishing greater things in the future, things which will require real commitment to make a measurable difference in the world. Jason, if you cannot inspire loyalty and devotion, then you're probably not the right man for this kind of task. All right? So it's not a horrible thing to recognize that you're, not the right man for a particular task. Right? I am not a great singer. I am not a great dancer. I am not a great athlete. Right? I am not an inspiring religious figure. I am not cut out to be a teacher of the Bible. All right? I'm just a bloke who does a show that is entertaining and amusing and useful to a small number of people. And that's it. All right? If I tried to become an accountant, I wouldn't be cut out for it. There are all sorts of tasks that I am simply not cut out for. And, just simply recognizing that you're not cut out for something is a wonderful thing. To be honest, Jason says, I'm insulted enough that my pride would never allow me to go back to political commentary again. Right? Do you believe that? I mean, that's definitely how he feels right now, but is that really going to be the truth? Is he never going back to political commentary again? That it would be like taking back an unfaithful woman, a humiliation. Well, many men do take back unfaithful women. Why do men take back unfaithful women? Because they see that compared to the alternatives, it's a better deal. So that's why men take back unfaithful women, and people often return to political commentary, all right, because they love doing it, all right? And why is this an insult to his pride? Because he had an exaggerated sense of his own importance. He had an exaggerated sense of his own following. And so when you get humiliated, it's invariably because you're out of touch with reality. So I've had jobs where I thought I was important to the job. And guess what? I wasn't. I got fired. And they replaced me with someone who was less expensive. And apparently I wasn't that important. People say not to compare yourself to others. Look, we can't help but compare ourselves to others, right? So that's stupid saying don't compare yourself to others. But what you can do is not allow it to overwhelm you and disable you. We need to compare ourselves to others for information, so we kind of know what's going on, know what the score is. We need to compare ourselves to other people for connection, right? And connection, information, inspiration, a scorecard, right? All valid reasons to compare yourself to others. It's inevitable you're going to compare yourself to others, so you might as well know that it's for good reasons. But it doesn't have to be disabling. Like, I'm a happy guy, I think, and I do a happy show, and I'm not disabled that I get, 1/1000th of the viewers of Dennis Prager or Alex Jones or Nick Fuentes or J.F. Garapi or Richard or whoever, or Andrew Holt or Lester Holt, who does it's not a big deal to me. I notice when my views go from 7 to 10 to 15 to 20 to 200, and I'd rather do a show for 200 people than 20 people, right? So I notice other people who are more successful than I am. I get information from that, and sometimes I'll seek out advice or community from other people. So there's no point denying yourself the ability to compare yourself to others, right? You are going to do that, but it doesn't have to become disabling for you, right? I notice people who churn out, a lot of what I think is, low IQ, stupid content, like Ben Shapiro or much of what Dennis Prager does. But they are telling an audience what it wants to hear. Like they are meeting a need. Tucker Carlson, he's telling an audience what it wants to hear. And as a result, he has a huge audience. If Dennis and Ben and Tucker started telling people tough truths that they didn't want to hear, what would happen? They would have far fewer viewers, right? They would have less status, less money, right? It would come as very painful shock to them. Jason says, I can't help looking at all the other commentators out there who are making six figures like Z-Man says he does at Amran. Okay, so does Z-Man really make six figures? Z-Man meets a need, and he tells people things that they want to hear. Or become a millionaire like Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is incredibly talented at what he does. Right? Very, very few people, like one person in 10,000 has Nick Fuentes' abilities. So it's just simply not on for 99.9% of people. Or even charging $300 a ticket for a meetup like Richard Spencer did recently. Okay, Richard Spencer, again, is incredibly talented at what he does. Another guy recently needed money for rent, had to send out multiple emails telling people to stop donating because they'd sent too much already. So these people have more talent than Jason Kessler. Or they are better at telling people what they want to hear. Jason says, I have to go into debt buying equipment because I have a negative value, apparently. Well, it's better to know that now, all right? Like, be glad for getting these painful truths before one continues making a fool of oneself. Like, there are things that Jason Kessler can do in life that will be good for him, that will be well suited for him, that will be a blessing for both him, for people who care about him, and for other people. And I don't know what that is. It may mean opening up a car repair shop. It may mean going to work as an employee for an insurance company. It may mean, getting a job at a supermarket. The point is not to hate on those guys' success. It's to demonstrate that incentives are provided for content creators that the community cares about. I'm just not one of them. Jason Kessler could have gotten this message many, many years ago. He could have taken this message 4 years ago and not wasted the last 4 years of his life. It stings, but the community doesn't love me and never will. Okay, it does sting when the community doesn't love you and never will. And so a normal person would think, hey, it's time to move on. Right? I don't need to keep banging my head against the wall. Rather than wasting your time or mine, I will move on to other pursuits. Exactly. He probably should have done this many years ago. Probably for the best, as I have accumulated a lot of bitterness, resentment, and anger about how little backup we had after Charlottesville from the right, even from the established white nationalist community. Okay, so this bitterness, resentment, and anger is not serving you. So there are techniques for noticing it, tracking it, understanding why you have bitterness, resentment, and anger, but it doesn't serve you, all right? You're drinking poison and hoping that the other guys get sick. Also feels like I've been trapped in a sinking ship with people engaged in a constant circular firing squad. Everyone is a Fed, etc. Well, this is the community that you chose to fight for. This is your community, right? These are your people. So maybe it's not in your interest to affiliate with them anymore, right? Maybe you were wrong. Like, maybe notice where you went wrong and you can learn from it. I'm tired of being angry all the time. Okay, so that's on you. If I am angry, I want to inspect that and change it within myself rather than lashing out at an intractable and frustrating political landscape. Yeah. So this idea that you can just change the world, right? Very few people can change history. So in 2007, I wrote a blog post that Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, his marriage was over. And that precipitated a series of revelations about Antonio Villaraigosa that ended his political career, and it was perhaps the top story in California in 2007. So that was one way I made a tiny difference in the world, but those opportunities are quite rare. For those researching me in the future and judging me by my past, this is truly the end of this phase of my life. To the extent possible, I wish to extend my spiritual development beyond the toxic world of politics, which, from my vantage point, has absolutely corrupted nearly everyone of all political affiliations who engages in. Well, has it really? I mean, it hasn't been good for you. But just because it hasn't been good for you doesn't mean that it's corrupted nearly everyone. Jason says, my social media and web presence will likely be deleted in the near future. So how many people will experience this as a great sense of loss? That Jason Kessler deletes his web presence. I will say that probably as many people will experience this as a great sense of loss, as people who would feel, a great sense of loss if I deleted my web presence. All right, so talking few dozen, maybe a few hundred people at max. What role does money play in my daily life? Well, when I am going backwards in my daily life, all right, financially going backwards, when I am, say, spending more money than I am earning, that makes me feel heavy. It makes me feel unmasculine, incompetent, not happy, all right? Unless, I didn't feel that way when I took 3 months off to go to Australia, and I didn't feel that way when I took 2 months to go to Australia the year before. But if it's inadvertent and I'm going backwards despite the best of my efforts, then that is sobering, it is depressing, it is anxiety-making. It would reduce my confidence and strength to be able to do these shows. So sometimes when I've stopped doing these shows for a week or two at a time, it's because I've had some kind of financial setback. And it's like, oh, let me just take time off and reassess everything. So the direction of my financial life has a substantial effect on my happiness, because it's a pretty strong measure of your competence and whether you are being a blessing and a service to other people or not, right? Jason Kessler isn't attracting a devoted following because apparently he isn't meeting many people's needs. When I'm going backwards inadvertently, despite my best efforts financially, it's because I've been selfish. It's because I haven't been interested in being of service to other people. It means that, I'm out of alignment with reality. And so this is sobering, this is sad, this is somewhat depressing, this kind of knocks me back, it kills my confidence. On the other hand, when I'm saving money, then I feel good. When I'm paying my bills, when I'm meeting my responsibilities, when I'm donating up to about 10% of my income, I primarily donate to Orthodox Jewish institutions, right? Then I feel good, like I'm carrying my weight, I'm being an adult, I'm saving for retirement. So I'm 56 years of age, so I'm saving for a rainy day, I'm saving for retirement, I pay all my bills, and I contribute to the wider Jewish community around me. And so I want to, feel good as I'm walking through the Jewish community that I'm stepping up. Like there are institutions and there are groups in Orthodox Judaism that I contribute to that benefit me and that benefit my wider community. Yeah, I plan to keep live streaming into my 90s. Okay, my dad was still quite lucid until about a month before he died at age 90. Bernard says, my financial life is getting better. I'm probably getting my third pay rise in less than a year soon. Yeah, so as your financial life gets better, Bernard, I assume that you feel happier. And when you feel happier, you're more of a blessing to the people around you. When you're a mope, when you're depressed, when you're dejected, when you're feeling down, when you lack confidence in yourself, that's a drag on others, right? So about the most moral thing that you can do for other people is to get your financial house together, earn money in a legal and upstanding way. I don't know if it's the power of positive thinking. I think it's the power of living within reality. Money really matters. It may not be the number one most important thing in life. I don't think it is, but it's certainly in the top three, right? What you can do in life, what you can support, how you can help, right, is largely determined by your money. And if you don't meet your adult responsibilities, then you're a drag on others. And how can you feel good about yourself if you are consistently a drag on other people? So money is a good measure, right? Not a perfect measure of where you are in life, but it's a really good measure of reality, and probably one that Jason Kessler should pay attention to. I remember when I was coming out of 6 years of chronic fatigue syndrome, and I had this wonderful psychiatrist in Orlando, Florida, and he got me on this medication, Nardil, that started restoring me to normal life, and I went from like 120 pounds to like 160 pounds in about 3 or 4 months. And so I started feeling good. And one of the first things he said as I was recovering was, get out there and show me how much money you can make. Because if you earn the money legally, in an upstanding fashion, it will be ennobling, particularly if you've had a long period where you've just been lying around. So get out there, show me how much money you can make. Really good advice for a lot of people, particularly those who haven't been devoting themselves to hard work. All right, let's check in with our friend Ethan Ralph.
He would be nothing but a... So, I'm going to see my son today for the 5th time, and I'm very excited about it. But it just made me think about something. I got letters back in 2020. 2 different letters. One was written to somebody else. One was written directly to me. And they told me that I would never see my son. That he would be nothing but a monster that his family told him about. Nothing but a boogeyman that his family told him about. That he would never see me, he would never meet me, and he would never know me. And I just want to tell those people, thank you. Because you gave me the gumption, you gave me the strength, you gave me the confidence, quite frankly. Because I thought you might be right. But you gave me the inner strength to fight you to the end of the goddamn earth. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I will be in my son's life. And I'm going to prove that later today. So thank you. I want to thank those 2 handwritten letters for really giving me the inspiration.
Man, I was hoping he'd launch into song, You're the Inspiration. You're the one who helps me make a better day, so let's not give in. Okay, Ralph was so outrageously high on Xanax last night, he forgot who he conducted an interview with minutes after it ended. Well, I think we've all been there. No judgment.
Who was that I was even talking to, by the way?
Going towards the speeds.
Who was that I was talking to?
Just being vulnerable.
I'm not kidding. I just been munching bars for days. I literally don't even remember who the fuck I was talking to. Like, who the fuck was I just talking to? I've just been munching for days. I really don't even know. Did I actually talk to Milo? I did not. No way. Did I talk to Milo? Please somebody clip it. Holy shit. Oh, it was that. Oh, yeah, no, it was the, no, I know how to talk to you. Ollie Accuser.
Okay. Wow. Ethan Ralph. All right. Have you guys watched the Seinfeld episode, season 7, episode 2, the postponement, where Elaine confides in a rabbi who lives in her building? Now, when Christians confide to their clergy, it's usually taken for granted that what they confide is confidential. That's not how it usually works in Jewish life. All right. There's no immediate assumption of confidentiality when you confide with a rabbi. So it's not like you confide with your therapist or you confide with your lawyer or your accountant where you can assume confidentiality, or when you confide in a priest, you can assume confidentiality. It doesn't work that way in Jewish life. Usually rabbis will use what they say for the good of the community. So this is season 7.
This evening find you. Well, Rabbi, well, I trust you're here to see your friend Elaine. Yeah, that's right. I hope she's feeling better.
What do you mean?
She didn't tell you?
No.
Well, it seems the engagement of her friend George has left her feeling bitter and hostile.
Is that so?
Oh, yes. In fact, she...
So I've often heard it said that when you send a text message or an email, just imagine it being, say, broadcast on, a full stadium screen. All right. So just imagine that tens of thousands of people could read it. It's also a good moral guide for life. Just imagine that whatever you're saying and doing shows up on the front page of the newspaper. Another good moral guide for life is to operate as though everybody knows everything. Not perfectly true, but a good guide for life instead of trying to get away with stuff.
He told me that she wishes she was the one who was getting married.
Really?
She came off as pretty desperate.
I didn't know any of this.
Apparently, she doesn't think much of this George fellow either. I recall the word loser peppered throughout her conversation.
Well, this all comes as news to me.
Hi.
So, yeah, if our friends knew what we really thought of them, nobody would have any friends.
You had a little talk with him too.
Yeah, we talked earlier.
Yes, I know.
What does that mean?
Nothing.
So the Elaine character is not Jewish, and so she automatically assumed anything she confided with the rabbi would stay confidential.
Nothing.
He didn't mention...
Yes, he did.
He told you about the conversation?
Oh, we had quite a little chat.
He told you about...
Yes, about how you were very jealous of George, how you wish you were getting married instead of him.
He told you that? How could he?
And it didn't take much.
So, yeah, it's best if you really have painful things to confide that you only confide them to people who are legally obligated to maintain your confidentiality. Okay, let's have a look at the chat. Gunnar says, I don't agree with Ford on the money issue. The most popular people aren't exactly the highest value, but they do get the most value. You see Trad Thoughts getting tons of viewers. Well, they're providing value. It's just not value that you would see as value. All right. It's like, why are some people so up in arms about Bud Light? Bud Light having that trans person representing them. And for people who love Bud Light, it was like really made them mad. Okay. So I would expect that very few of my viewers have an intense connection with Bud Light, but you're not a bad person, right? I know some of my higher IQ friends would think, what kind of moron has an intense bond with Bud Light? Well, a person with a 100 IQ, right, doesn't have a whole lot of possibilities in life. Let's say he works a job, and then one of his great pleasures is coming home and drinking Bud Light. And let's say he's a heterosexual guy, he's married, and he doesn't appreciate that Bud Light has a trans male to female spokesmodel. Okay. Now, what he sees as value, Bud Light, all right, you don't see it as value, but for him, Bud Light represents value. I don't think Bud Light plays, a huge role in the lives of my viewers. You see Trad Thoughts and gamers as top YouTubers, while high IQ dudes get very few viewers. Yes, the Trad Thoughts and the gamers are providing value to a certain audience. Higher IQ shows, all right, they have a much lower potential audience, and then even of the people who could potentially be interested, they're putting on shows that are much more intellectually demanding. So there are going to be far fewer people who will, want to take them in. Luke Ford is boring now, but even at his peak, some random Trad Thought would blow him out in terms of viewership. Doesn't mean that Ford wasn't higher value at one point. Value for who? See, Gunnar, you're just looking at everything through your eyes and what provides value for you. But what provides value for the 110 person, the 105 person, the 100 person, the 95 IQ person is very different from what provides value for you. So you just take it for granted. The value for Gunnar Lundblom is 2 alpha. It's just the objective standard of value, and it's not. I'm sorry to break that news to you. You have a particular hero system. You have a particular humor system, right? You have particular ways of understanding and ranking value, but that only really applies to you and people like you, all right? You're 135, 140 IQ dude, all right? So what provides you value is going to be very different and what provides the 115 IQ and lower person value?
Running either, I have to say.
Can he do that?
He did.
Yeah, can a rabbi divulge what you thought was confidential? Can he do that? And the answer is yes. Now, priests aren't supposed to, and priests, I would assume, rarely do so. Also, I would generally think that Protestant ministers would maintain confidentiality, but I'm not as sure on that end as perhaps I should be. But before you confide, you need to know, is it really confidential? Is it
But he's a
really involved?
rabbi. How can a rabbi have such a big mouth?
Yeah, well, rabbis will preach about Lashon Hara, meaning evil speech, the evils of gossip. But rabbis gossip as much as plumbers, accountants, doctors, dentists, lawyers, business people. Rabbis gossip all the time. And so what you confide to a rabbi will very much likely end up in their gossip. Only they don't call it gossip. They call it, looking out for the welfare of the community. They call it talking shop. Okay. Luke, would you consider me high value if I made $800 to $1,000 a year and have a net worth of $14.5 million? Yes, I would consider you having high financial value. But your tastes for what constitutes high value in a live stream, all right, that is unique to you. And there will be some people similar taste to you, but those who get great value from a Trat Thought live stream or a gamer live stream, all right, they simply have different tastes than you do. Your tastes are not objective truth and objective measures of value for everyone.
It's so fascinating.
Okay, so Elaine, a little surprised that a conversation with the rabbi wasn't kept confidential.
Can I offer you some kasha varnishkas?
No, listen, Rabbi, I'd like to ask you a question. Why? Why did you tell my friend Jerry what I talked to you about?
All right, so again, she's presuming that conversations with a rabbi are confidential. And they're not. They're not, guys. They're not. There is the rare rabbi who will hold it in the vault, but that is not the de facto mode for rabbis.
Was that a problem for you?
Of course it was a problem for
Also, this rabbi seems to be somewhat socially inept.
me. You didn't tell anyone else about this, did you?
Well, let's see. I seem to recall a conversation with Mrs. Winston in 1F.
Okay, so this particular episode ends with George and his fiancée in bed watching the rabbi's community access cable TV show.
That's the rabbi from Elaine's building. I just met this guy the other day.
A young lady I know, let's call her Elaine, happened to find herself overwhelmed with feelings of resentment and hostility for her friend. Let's call him George. She felt that George was somewhat of a loser, and that she was the one who deserved to be married first. She also happened to mention to me that her friend had wondered if going to a prostitute while you're engaged is considered cheating.
Okay, that's gold. It's absolute gold. Okay, so looking at the Los Angeles Times. Nice uplifting story here. Faith lifted Pittsburgh Jews in long wait for massacre trial. So I think approximately 12 Jews were massacred at a synagogue in Pittsburgh. The gunman had sought them out based on their affiliation with HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. So faith lifted Pittsburgh Jews in long wait for massacre trial. So 3 Jewish congregations, resolute in their defiance of the hatred that tried to destroy them, are still waiting for justice. So this might be me, but I would think that the best thing that they can do is to add security. So all these synagogues where Jews have gotten murdered in the United States, they didn't have any security out front. Right? And there's nothing nothing in this story about these Jewish groups adding security. Right? Perhaps these organizations, these groups, communities ought to man up and not just leave their security to God and to Holocaust education. Right? Holocaust education is not a super reliable means for deterring criminal activity. So if these Jewish congregations are resolute in their defiance of the hatred that tried to destroy them, they might learn how to legally carry guns to protect themselves. So what's the best way of honoring the Jews who were murdered? Perhaps taking steps to minimize the chances of more Jews getting murdered, such as developing security so that these attacks will be less effective in the future or completely deterred. But no, these groups are just doubling down on the left-wing activism that may well have triggered the attack. Right? And as far as waiting for justice, even if the gunman here is sentenced to death, that's no justice, all right? It's the best that can be done. But there's no justice possible here. 12 innocent people were murdered. So, but each in their own ways. Yeah, but each in ineffective ways, apparently, just judging from the descriptions in the article, each in their own left-wing ways, members are finding renewed purpose in honoring those lost in the attack, in the bold practice of their faith. Judaism is not primarily a faith, right? There's an element of faith in it, but it's primarily a tribal identity and practicing the rituals of the tribe, right? It's not a faith. That's a Christian perspective. In activism on issues like gun violence and immigration, in taking a stand against anti-Semitism and other forms of bigotry, we will never do away with bigotry as long as there's in-group identity, right? There will be hatred and hostility towards outgroups. On the Sunday, the day before jury selection in the Pittsburgh shooter, the Tree of Life congregation is having a closure ceremony for its historic building. A closure ceremony? What the hell nonsense is that? 12 people were slaughtered. There's no closure. Like, why would there be closure? 12 members of your tribe, of your community, of your loved ones were slaughtered. Why the hell are you holding closure ceremonies? How gay is that? Now, this is obviously not an Orthodox synagogue. I'd like to think that Orthodox synagogues would not hold closure ceremonies. The congregation and a partner organization plan a major overhaul of the site, which will combine worship space with a memorial and anti-Semitism education, including about the Holocaust. Yeah, that's really going to keep Jews safe. Anti-Semitism education. Dor Hadash, founded 60 years ago, is Pittsburgh's only congregation in the progressive Reconstructionist movement of Judaism. Many members are drawn to its interlocking focuses on worship study and social activism. Well, Reconstructionist Judaism doesn't posit any belief in God, so where the hell is their faith? Right? This has nothing to do with faith. So it's this left-wing activism that drew the shooting suspect to the address where the synagogue met, right? So he fulminated online against HIAS, the Jewish Refugee Settlement Agency. So he doesn't want more refugees settled in the United States. So you affiliate yourself with HIAS, right? You are going to draw down the ire of those who don't want more refugees. So the congregation was listed on HIAS's website as a participant in a national refugee Shabbat, which wove concern for migrants into Shabbat worship. I am a man of such lofty moral principles. Like, I'm a man who's not afraid to stand up for right and wrong. I will tell you right now, I would not attend a synagogue holding a national refugee Shabbat unless there are a lot of attractive women there. But other than that, like, unless there are like beautiful women there, I wouldn't go there for a national refugee Shabbat, right? You're only asking for trouble, all right? But apparently the attack has only emboldened Dor Hadash members. Oh, man. Just trying to pull up the chat here. It's only emboldened these guys in their left-wing activism. They were soon organizing what became a separate group. Squirrel Hill Stands Against Gun Violence, advocating for gun safety legislation. I know someone who talks about gun rights much, right? I don't have, strong opinions. I generally stand with gun rights, but I recognize that there are probably some good challenges to that. So they've redoubled their support for immigrants, for refugees, and for helpers such as HIAS, right? Congregation sponsored a refugee family originally from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and they've taken a strong stand against rising anti-Semitism and white supremacy. So none of these things are going to reduce violence against Jews, I would suspect. So a chair for this Reconstructionist Jewish group says, I think advocacy, meaning left-wing advocacy, has been a huge part of our healing. Advocacy isn't just about making myself feel better. It's about trying to move the needle so this doesn't happen to everyone else. Best way to move the needle, get security. There are a lot of people who are seeking some way to help that the world is a more compassionate place. Well, more compassionate for whom? All right? If you set up security, right, it would be a more compassionate place for those who are benefited by that security. I mean, bringing in refugees, right, is compassionate for the refugees, but it's frequently anti-compassionate for the Americans that they hurt. Right? You might want to watch the new 3-part Boston Marathon bombing on Netflix to reacquaint yourself with what refugees can do. These 2 children of refugees from Chechnya wreaked absolute havoc on Boston, shut down the city. So if this attack in Pittsburgh only emboldened left-wing Jews, they can be sure there will be more dramatic conflicts of interest in the future. When conflicts of interest become sufficiently dramatic, they tend to tip into violence. Then we have a Reform rabbi writing in the New York Times. His synagogue was hit with a Molotov cocktail attack. He said, we had a plan of action in place. American Jewish institutions have developed rapid response playbooks to address concrete terror threats, best practices. We've invested in security. We've added cameras, panic buttons, shatterproof film. All right, these are all good ideas. These are concrete steps to make yourself safer. So when hate feels insurmountable and unpredictable, we have to shrink the problem. Even if we are treading a shaky path, we have to search for tiny patches of firm ground. So yeah, just doing something will usually reduce anxiety. So doing something that's effective, all right, that's going to be something that's more aligned with reality, all right? That's a more lasting way to approach these dramatic conflicts of interest that spiral into violence. Together with neighboring rabbis, we educated our local towns to call us when there is an anti-Semitic incident so we can strategize with them about the right response. Some of our local Christmas tree lightings now include a Jewish presence. This past year, we used the Molotov cocktail attack to talk about our collective fear and the need to bring light. In April, when we realized that Passover ended over Ramadan, we broke bread with a local Turkish community. That night in our sanctuary, a mixed group of Muslims and Jews gathered around one of our Torah scrolls and discussed the many things our faiths shared. Our wider Jewish community has reached across religious and racial lines to work towards social justice issues like bringing rent control to neighboring Montclair to build bonds and trusts. We are working with schools to evaluate their Holocaust curriculums. We have worked to allow students to understand the connection between the hatred of the Nazis and the hatred today, not just against Jews, but against all who experience bigotry. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Holocaust education does not make people better, right? It's not going to minimize the chance of future attacks. You get attacks when there are dramatic conflicts of interest between groups. As long as people have strong in-groups identity, they are going to have negative feelings about out-groups, whether those out-groups are Jews, Christians, Americans, white people, Russians, black people, gays, Muslims, right? Having antipathy towards out-groups is not always irrational, right? You have a strong in-group identity. You will likely have varying degrees of hostility towards out-groups. There are rare exceptions, such as like Mennonite Christians, right? The stronger your Mennonite Christian identity, right, it doesn't seem to be accompanied by an increase in hostility towards out-groups. But for almost all in-group identities, the stronger your in-group identity, the more hostility you'll have towards outgroups. When you have dramatic conflicts of interest and people are living in proximity to each other, you will frequently have violence. Now you're probably wondering, what does Chuck Johnson have to say about Ali Alexander?
So there was this event that was being hosted. I think Teal showed up. I know Jeff Kesey ran it, or some version of it, or maybe it was ran around him, but it was in Cleveland. Honestly, I'm not a big party person in general, so I'm much more like kind of introverted in that way. So like I didn't make that a blur ball. I'm not terribly interested in like large groups of people in general. It's like not my thing. I prefer the more intimate dinner party. My brother jokes with me that like, Jesus had 12 disciples, and if he'd only had 10, one of them betrayed him and the other one, denied him. So like keep the circle tight, So that's always been how I've conducted myself personally. But it is interesting. Like I've been thinking about it in the last few years. What was the point of all that? Was it just to like see who would gawk or who would look or who would whatever? I don't know. I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot in the last few years. And was it just innocuous homosexualness? I don't know. But I will tell you, that.
But
I will tell
Ali
you that
is
the
so
thing.
connected. He's like,
Well, so Ali is
he's
Emirati.
funded by the Mercers. He's funded by
Yeah, if you understand that Ali is an Emirati figure, right? The Emiratis use George Nader, who was a child molester, convicted child molester, and there's a sort of use of the sort of criminal world by some elements within the Arab world as basically emissaries, people that will do anything, for them.
Yeah.
And Ali, personally, I haven't written what I want to say. I mean, I've written what I want to say about Ali, but I'm kind of too cowardly to publish it, to be honest. And what has been interesting to me was, so I was being attacked by the Israelis rather aggressively online and elsewhere. And Ali showed up out of nowhere, offered to be my PR person for free. And given that he was, likely homosexual, we never really brought it up because, I have the opposite problem of homosexuality, where I have too many women in my life, just frankly. So, and so, he showed up, was extremely helpful. He was a sort of, gay, black, Arab person here to help me. And he helped me, rather like effortlessly. He like rebutted some of the media inquiries that were all like, the typical, Israeli, NBC News, whatever nonsense. They were attacking me. And I later learned that the reason the Israelis were attacking me was they were concerned about efforts I was making in the genetic space and involvement that I was getting the U.S. Congress involved with. And I sued, by the way, all the way up to the Supreme Court over the defamation of the Huffington Post. I even met with the Huffington Post people about the defamation. They were so shocked by what I was telling them, shocked, that the Indian head of Verizon Media sold Huffington Post for $1 to BuzzFeed. And BuzzFeed, of course, is where Mike Cernovich used to leak all of his material, right? So there's this sort of, shall we call it like, there's these sort of people who are perverts or disgusting or eccentrics or weirdos or whatever that have all these connections to foreign intelligence and oligarchs who are backed by foreign intelligence. So that there's a lot of rumors about Robert Mercer having connections with the Russians, certainly his connections with the sort of Hong Kong Chinese. And so, and of course, Rebecca Mercer, his daughter, was a major backer of Armie Hammer's, career early on. So there's these sort of like oligarch types. And what they do is they have consiglieres, or they have fixers, or they have people that are their emissaries as well. And Ali had basically positioned himself in that territory. So remarkably well connected, remarkably helpful, remarkably relational. I remember him. He was the first person to call me on my birthday one year, which I'd never told him my birthday. Right? Very kind of strange kind of things like that. And to be honest with you, I don't know what I think about the allegations that are promulgated against him. So for one, like, I'm not excusing this. Okay, like again, I'm not excusing this. I'm not defending it. Having been targeted by the homosexual parts of the Republican Party, the groomer right, if you will. I've written about this myself, my own experience with Thor Halvorson, who runs a quote unquote human rights outfit. So I'm not defending this, but I am saying that there is a certain person who is a young gay man or gay curious man who both wants to be selected and is sort of like also a participant in this kind of system, if you will. And this gives their sort of sexual identity issues a form of meaning as well. And I've seen this time and time again. I mean, I'm not defending it. It just is a thing. And you also run into this when you get some notoriety and you're a heterosexual man, where like there will be the daughter of a congressman who will like be absurdly friendly with you when you are, when she's 19 and you're 31 or whatever, 32, right? And there's a lot of that goes on, right? Particularly when you're perceived as having status or influence or power. And I could imagine a 15-year-old, sublimated gay boy, right, who sees Ali Alexander and sees him with the Robert Mercers or the Jack Dorseys of the world, and intuits quite rightly that he's a powerful person, right, and wants in on that, right? He may not even know it on a conscious level, right? He may just be sort of attracted to it in the way that when you're young, you just kind of know that you're attracted to this or attracted to that, and you don't even really know where these desires come from in the first place. Now, I think what's indefensible on Ali's part is sort of taking advantage of those people, right, and sort of like harming them in some way. But I think that too is a big part of politics, which is in and of itself somewhat exploitative. And maybe that's kind of true of the tech industry. I mean, Heath Roboy has had a number of dalliances with people who work for him, right? I mean, we can point to many examples of people who carried on affairs with people who worked for them over the years. And again, I'm not condoning that, but I'm not really condemning it either. I mean, my mother worked for my father before they were married. Okay, like I've always taken the Me Too issue somewhat personally in that regard. So human beings will meet each other. There'll be sort of things that are not exactly on the up and up, and this is just, I think, part of human nature is to sort of see these kind of things. Now, what I find interesting here is, one, I know that Milo collects blackmail on people. Okay, he's very open about that. He's talked about that. He's threatened people. He's threatened to destroy them, harm them in different ways. Okay, fine. He's also an alien, under an O1 visa, which is the Einstein visa, quote unquote, which is for an alien of exceptional ability. What exceptional ability does he have? Very unclear.
Well, he does have an exceptional ability.
I mean, he has exceptional abilities, but they're not exactly
toxic.
Yes, they're exceptionally toxic, perhaps. But I don't think that's
the
exactly.
Einstein of
yes. So then there's the question of like, this information was saved up for quite a number of years to be deployed 7 years later, right? And there's no criminal filings. There are text messages, and that's gross. Like, okay, but people text a lot of things in all kinds of states. People's text messages get stolen. They get rearranged. They get turned into black propaganda. show me the man's cell phone and I'll show you the crime, right? I mean, there's lots of examples of this that one could do.
Well, it should be noted that he has not denied these allegations.
He has not denied it, and he has apologized for it, which
That's
I think
response to ask, because if you have an allegation like this, your first instinct and a correct instinct is to deny it, just outright deny it. Which
he didn't deny it. He apologized for text messages in general, and in particular, he said that there are many instances of things being manufactured or made up. I mean, he did make that clear. Now, again, I'm not defending him. He's not a friend of mine. I've maybe met him twice in real life. And just to be clear about this, I did warn the FBI about him many years ago. So I'll get into that sort of side plot in a second. I told Ali many years ago he felt he was being targeted by foreign intelligence in DC, and he freaked out. I've never seen somebody more scared in my life. Like he was, we FaceTimed. He was like sweating. He was very disturbed, like he'd been chased or something. And I told him to go to the FBI. He said that he would. I later found out that he did not go to the FBI in any meaningful way. And then during the whole January 6th matter, the FBI asked me about Ali. I explained some of the stuff I've told you guys here. I've explained other things that I sort of saw and things around him. The FBI set a meeting to go meet me down in Waco, Texas. At the time, I was living in the Woodlands, Texas. I drove there, was ready for the meet, and then the FBI agent, who was not the main FBI agent I was supposed to, I knew, canceled the meeting at like the 11th hour. What I've been told is that Ali has been extremely helpful in identifying a lot of these foreign intelligence networks to the FBI over the last, basically since January 6th, that he's basically gone informant. So therefore, the attacks on Ali, by a Marjorie, by a Milo Yiannopoulos, in my estimation, they are using a true thing, a disgusting true thing for that matter, maybe even a criminal true thing, as a means of shutting him up and taking him out of the conversation because they fear other things that he might have written or said or done.
Yeah, so this information about Ali Alexander was known for many, many years. So why exactly was it deployed now? Sure, there's some gold in the things that Chuck Johnson just had to say. It's hard to disentangle, what's true and what's invalid from what he's having to say. So,
Orthodox Jew, I keep shomer negia. That means I don't touch people of the opposite gender unless I am directly related to them through blood or marriage. I've given a lot of thought to this, and the answer is based off of my own comfort level. This isn't something that I've discussed with a rabbinic authority, just for clarification. If a stranger approached me and offered their hand to shake, I would make that decision based off of their physical appearance. So is it possible that they could be on day one of transition or even month one of transition? Sure, but unless they told me up front, I wouldn't necessarily know that, and I'm not comfortable asking somebody that just when they offer me their hand to shake. But let's say I met somebody like Dylan. The entire world knows that she is a trans woman. I would shake her hand, and if she's the huggy type, I would embrace her. Am I allowed to touch a trans woman? Hi, my name is Miriam. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I share what my life looks like. As an Orthodox Jew, I keep shomer negia. That means I don't touch people of the opposite gender.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that angle of Orthodox Judaism shaking hands with, say, someone who transitioned to the opposite sex. Is just kind of mind-blowing trying to get my head around it, and I don't know what to say. But one thing I do know what to say is commentary on Dennis Prager.
So you will like this, I think. Because I think everything through. I think, are they happy? Are they happy? Are they happy? And my theory is they're content. But I'm not sure they're happy.
Talking about Scandinavians.
They're not the same. My dogs are content, but it's a bit odd to say they're happy. If you don't know you're happy, you're not happy. But they're very content. Cows grazing are content. Mm-hmm. I'm not comparing Scandinavians to cows. I'm merely noting that contentment is not the same as happiness. And I am convinced that the reason they're constantly voted happiest, or a big reason, is that they are the model for the people who do these polls for the UN or for whatever think tank it is, because they're so filled with big government taking care of people. The assumption is among the both liberals and leftists, in this case they think similarly, most cases they don't, they just vote similarly, that if the government takes care of you, you'll be happy. They're projecting their view of what makes a human happy, whereas there's no comparison in the happiness of people who take care of themselves and who are taken care of.
Right.
Isn't the nightmare of every human being who gets older, I don't want to be dependent upon others? So why is that the dream of every progressive on earth? I want to be taken care of. You want to be taken care of. It's the nightmare of people being taken care of.
Right. So I want to ask, to you, what is the difference between happiness and contentment, and what do you think
creates
each?
That's why I used contentment. Is there you don't have any serious problems.
Right.
Right. And I do have a motto: if nothing's horrific, life is terrific. That is true. However.
Okay, so is it really that the happiness ratings are rigged to align with the left-wing elite's understanding of happiness, I'm highly skeptical. So there should be objective statistics that reliably predict happiness, such as family stability, low rates of crime, low rates of, say, suicide, many opportunities for people to join together, strong in-group identity. And I don't think that Scandinavian happiness is just rigged. I think, at least until they were invaded by, high levels of immigration, that these were fairly cohesive, coherent, high-trust societies. People in cohesive, coherent, high-trust societies tend to be happy. And I think that's what's going on with Japan, with Australia, with the Scandinavian countries. You have here overwhelmingly coherent, cohesive societies with high levels of social trust. As social trust declines in a society, like it has dramatically in the United States over the past 60 years, then happiness goes down. But this idea that happiness levels are related to how much you do for yourself versus how much you do for the government, like, why exactly are people happier having to purchase private insurance and then purchase new private insurance when they change jobs, when they live in fear of some medical procedure that will bankrupt them? How exactly does that make people happier, right? These are countries that have far lower levels of government spending per GDP than the United States. Somalia, Turkmenistan, Haiti, Venezuela, Sudan, Iran, Equatorial Guinea, Bangladesh, Ethiopia, Yemen, Guinea, Nigeria, right? Do you really want the United States to be more like those countries where people apparently are just so happy because they have, such low levels of, government intervention in their lives? I thought this was a particularly weak argument by Dennis.
You need more than that. It is a great motto. Oh, my God. Hey, Sean, play the jingle, will you? If nothing's horrific, life is... Yes, I came up with this phrase, and some great listener made it into a jingle.
Oh, my God.
Contact my friends at Billy and Jerry Plumbing and sponsors, which I committed to always telling the truth to the best of my human ability. When I receive scripts from sponsors, which I have all of my life, basically, if there's...
Look, truth is one value among many values, right? Sometimes you tell white lies to save other people's feelings, right? It's not like free speech or truth or courage or kindness or compassion, that these are just the ultimate value against which all other values must bow, right? Values always exist in a constellation, in competition with each other.
Something in there that isn't true, and there almost always is. I'll give one example. I omit it. So, for example, almost every script that I have to read says, so you contact my friends at Billy and Jerry Plumbing, but if they're not my friends, I don't say it.
I have learned from you hugely in that regard. With in so many other ways, but with regard to advertising and omitting things that are not necessarily true.
I always get a kick out of that. By the way, tangent again, this is a fun one. So not only do I not say it because it's not honest, I'm not sure it's effective.
Right.
Because if I say contact...
Nobody makes the jingle for Luke should be based on a Richard Spencer. I've had jingles made for me. I just happen to prefer the opening music that is available on YouTube, royalty free. So I used a jingle that someone else created years ago on the show.
Contact my friends.
Yes, it's like nepotism.
Well, not only that, maybe people think, the only reason he's endorsing them is because they're his friends.
That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah, the nepotism. Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
Why is that an effective line?
On this point...
If a woman asks me if she looks fat, do I tell her a white lie? Usually I would tell her a white lie. There may be occasions when I don't, such as if I wanted to break up with me.
Honesty, and again, you're so right that this is just so Dennis and Julie to go off an exit ramp and come back on.
But this is just so inspiring. Are you not inspired? Are you not inspired by this commitment to honesty here with regard to his sponsors?
It is so important. This is something I've really learned, especially in the past year. If you want to live an honest life, you have to live an honest life in every arena.
No. All right. You may very well have a job that forces you to say things that are not fully honest, right? There are a lot of jobs force you to do that if you want to be employed in that profession or if you want to work for a particular boss. When you have a job, when you work for someone, you are a tool, an instrument of that boss. So yeah, if the violation of your personal ethics is just too dramatic, then you should get another job. But let's say you're a free market economist, and this happened to a friend of mine, free market economist, but the only job she could get was for a trade group that was pushing for subsidies. So she disagreed with the trade group pushing for subsidies, but she needed a job, and this was the job that was available, as the job that was most convenient for her schedule and for what she needed. And she wasn't setting the policies of this trade group. She was simply a tool, an instrument of the trade group. So if your job, goes against what you believe, say with regard to free market economics or with regard to litigation or with regard to this or that, but you're only an instrument, you're only a tool, you're only a paper pusher, then it's not ideal, but it's reality, right? You shouldn't destroy your life, the life of people who care about you, the lives of your family, because you disagree with, say, the ideological direction of the particular group that you work for.
Every single one. I think I said on this podcast that
How many 23-year-olds would say that? I'm not embarrassing you. I'm just pointing out.
Compromising your core principles for a job you think you need is a life that works. Well, guess what? Should be a core principle. Paying your bills, right? Saving money, supporting your family. So yeah, if supporting your family requires that even though you're a free market economist, you are a paper pusher for some trade group, then yeah, I say you do it. Now, there are some principles that you should not compromise on, but you have to have a sense of what's the upshot. If it makes absolutely no difference to whether or not you work for this trade group or someone else does, it makes no difference for the wider society, then why should you not go to work for them? Or you work for Coca-Cola, okay? Most people drinking Coke with all the sugar in it is a bad choice. But for some people, it's fine, right? They're active, they burn it off, it's fine. For most people, it's a bad choice. I don't think you're a bad guy if you go to work for Coca-Cola. Okay, so many foods that are, like, if you work for a company that sells rice, right? Rice is effectively as bad for you as Coca-Cola. Like, rice is probably worse for you than a candy bar because at least a candy bar has fat in it. So you go to work for a supermarket that sells rice or a company that sells rice, right? That's horrible for people. Rice is just a fast-burning carbohydrate that will elevate your blood sugar. Absolutely poison for your body. But I wouldn't tell someone, oh, you shouldn't go to work for a supermarket that sells food that's unhealthy for people. That's insane, right? If you have a delusional understanding of the effect of your work, then I would say you'd be better at place getting in touch with reality. So your principle may be that most people should not drink Coca-Cola. Your principle may be that most people should not eat complex or simple carbohydrates in the amounts that they do. But does that mean then you can't work for certain restaurants, certain supermarket chains, or all supermarket chains, that you can't work for, food companies? If you're an accountant, right, does that mean that you can't do accounting work for a Coca-Cola or an affiliate or a supermarket or some store that sells some food and some drink that is bad for people? Many people drink and drive and then kill people. Does that mean you can't work for a brewery? I don't know. I think I'd work for a brewery, and I don't like alcohol. I don't like the effect that alcohol has on people, but I know that some people use alcohol responsibly and some people use alcohol irresponsibly. Some people gamble responsibly. I don't think I would work for a gambling company. I'd have to be in a particularly desperate position. But it seems from what I've read, about a third of people who gamble, it has a noticeable detrimental effect on their life. But a third of people who drink, it doesn't have a noticeable detrimental effect on their life. It's more like 10%. So you have to be a little bit more sophisticated about how important is it, whether or not I go to work for this company, what effect will it have on the wider society? What effect will it have on me? Because you can go to work for a group, an organization, a business that is aligned with your values, but it just so happens to be an absolutely toxic workplace. So I've gotten, various feedback on what it's like to work for Dennis Prager. So some people thought it was a hellish experience and they ended up hating Dennis Prager. Other people thought it was a good experience, and other people thought it was just like another job, for what that's worth. Compromising your core principles for a job you think you need is a life that works. So as you go through the day, you will be constantly, choosing to uphold one principle over another, right? It's not like all your principles are just inviolable, right? You have to constantly weigh them against competing principles. This young woman could have been a nurse. She could have been a teacher. Instead, she chose to be a shill. She's not a shill, right? She's thoughtful, and she has some important things to say. Would Luke promote LGBT for a paycheck? If it was funny. Yeah, if it was funny. Like, humor for me is a value. If you do something that is funny as, right, then there's a time and a place for that. There's a time and a place for taking the attitude, LOL, nothing matters. Not as a guiding principle for your life, but there's a time and a place. Luke's diet consists mostly of supplements. Would Luke make pornographic movies for a paycheck? No, I wouldn't currently. But if it was a choice between, say, my family starving, if it was like some extreme case between me starving or my family starving, then yeah, I would.
A 43-year-old, if said that, we would think it's admirable and we'd move on. That you think about that is why you're you.
Oh, I think about it all the time.
I know.
I'll give you 2 examples.
And let's welcome Pigger to the show. Pigger, what's going on, bro?
Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Mounds got nuts. Wait, no. Almond Joy's got nuts. Mounds don't.
That's beautiful. That's important too. People need to know that. I mean, a lot of good things go into Almond Joy. It's not just a bad thing.
Right. So you think to yourself, "Hey, look! I'm Luke Ford, and I got this great idea that sometimes you're evil, sometimes you're good, and but really, Almond Joys and Mounds both have coconuts, and they're both nuts."
So true.
That's all I got.
So true.
That's all I got, man.
That's all you got, but it's powerful, bro. It's powerful.
Yeah, something to think about. Maybe next week I'll come up with something better.
Well, what about moral compromises that you've made in the workplace? Have you ever worked for a organization or a store that you disagreed with, but you needed to do it for the paycheck?
Wow, you're asking me to go into my memory banks, and that's kind of been erased. I have a mental problem, but I would say no. I've been truthful and honest about all my business dealings. That's all I would say about that.
And how's the scene in Israel? A lot of protests there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I guess that's calmed down. I didn't really get involved with that. It wasn't my time to protest. I was about the Gush Katif thing 20 years ago, and now it's their turn to worry about stuff, and our turn to laugh at them.
Okay, and you said, by the way, what were you going to say before I interrupted you?
By the way, have a good week.
Ah, wait. You had a comment that I said something that was irreligious when
I said... man. You don't want me on your show, dude. I got nothing, man.
No, I think you're underestimating what you bring to the show, bro. This is like
right.
a pro-pigger comment. So you said something.
I just wanted to sing that song.
That's all you wanted to do?
Song,
well,
right?
Then I want to respect your wishes,
Sometimes
bro.
you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't. It's a good song,
Powerful.
right?
Powerful, man. I want to respect you and your wishes. This is a place of respect.
So when you're espousing your idea is the Jewish idea of midot, right?
Yeah.
So say if you're you have a bloodlust, you want to see a lot of blood. So the rabbis say you should be a butcher.
Yeah.
So it's a midah. It's not that your bloodlust is evil. It just needs to be funneled in a good way.
Yeah, and also, sorry, did you have a further point?
Well, that's where I think you go wrong. It's like you kind of give the idea is like, well, sometimes you feel like a murderer, and sometimes you feel like a butcher. Like no, it's like the midot. It's like you always feel bloodlust, but it depends on what you do with that bloodlust.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think it contradicts anything I say. I mean, if you got bloodlust, go join the U.S. military or the Israeli military. as well.
You give the impression that you're saying that sometimes you are the murderer, sometimes you're the butcher.
Oh, what I say is sometimes you'll be the concentration camp guard. That in certain circumstances you will enforce strictures against outgroups because that's what your in-group demands of you. So it's not like one group in the world is just righteous and one group in the world is just victims, and one group is just inherently evil. It depends on the circumstance. So if Israel needed to call up its reserves, and part of the action of those reserves was to say isolate certain West Bank communities, like you would need to do that as a member of the Israeli in-group.
What do you mean by isolate? I mean, put him in concentration camps and
put them in. You might need to put them in prisons. All right. So, or if you're
making the argument that sometimes the Israeli will be the Nazi, and he'll establish concentration camps and murder a bunch of Palestinians. I just don't. I think you're taking a concept that can work really well if you finagle it right, but if you take it to a place where it's not meant to go.
Well, it depends on the circumstance. So if Israel needed to use its nuclear weapons, all right, and Israel apparently has threatened various countries that it will use nuclear weapons if its survival is at stake, then that would that could mean Israel wiping out millions of innocent people from the earth to try to deter threats to its own survival. And so the Nazis thought that they were fighting for their own survival in trying to rid the world of Jews, or at least trying to rid Jews from Europe.
Sorry, man. you gotta admit there's a difference between the butcher example and the Nazi example. Like the Nazis, the Nazi was evil, and the butcher example is that bloodlust is in between, but it depends if you are a murderer or you're a butcher.
Yeah,
so
I
agree. It's not having an army that makes you evil. It wasn't that the Nazis having an army and having the power made them evil. It's what they did with the army.
No, I absolutely agree. But you're looking at it through a moral lens, which is appropriate. And if I were to look at this through a moral lens, I would take that position as well. But I don't primarily base this show on a moral lens. I don't primarily base it on any particular hero system. I'm just pointing out that in life, various forms of life compete with each other. Now, if you take a leap of faith to some transcendent moral code, then you can make the case that this action is good and this action is evil. But absent that leap of faith to a transcendent moral code, then all you have are different forms of life competing for survival.
Well, fine. Absent a lot of things, lots of different things happen. Absent my shoes, I walk barefoot. So what? We have a moral code, and that's what we're supposed to live by as Jews.
Most of my audience
isn't. Point.
Yeah, most of my audience isn't Jewish, so I'm not imposing.
Your idea has a Jewish background to it. It's the idea of midot, but you took it to a secular place, and once you cross that line, it's no longer a Jewish idea.
That's correct. I'm not just speaking to a Jewish audience. If I'm speaking to someone who shares a moral code with me, then I can invoke the moral code. But most of my audience doesn't share my moral code. So I try to speak in a way that anyone can relate to, whether they're a believing Jew or if they're an atheist or if they're a Hindu. I try to speak in both universal and particular terms. So sometimes I'll transition from a particular perspective based on God-based ethics as revealed in the Torah to other times I'll just talk in terms of just brute force, where the strong take what they want and the weak endure what they must. I think you need to be able to relate to people who are different from you.
So when you're in the synagogue, you think that you go by the idea of midot, and when you go And when you talk to secular people, you go by the idea of might makes right.
Well, it depends what will that secular person relate to. So some people are, some people just very evolutionary, like group selection. Even plenty of secular Jews, they really relate to the idea of, Darwinian group selection. That's kind of the prism through which they see the world. And I will try to relate to people on that level. If they're Christians, I may relate to them on the basis of a shared scripture that we have, the Hebrew Bible. We have that in common. And so we have some, common perspectives, and we have a common scripture that we can relate to. If I'm talking to Orthodox Jews, then we accept that the Torah is divine. And so then we have a common moral framework. If I'm talking to Reform or Conservative Jews, then they don't believe that the Torah is divine. And so you have to try to find, some common ground depending on your audience. So I'm going to change what I say to most effectively relate to the person that I'm talking to. So depending on who they are, I'm going to adjust to fit in with where they're at.
But you're not trying to be on their level to understand the idea of midot. You're changing your philosophy into might makes right in order to fit in, and that's anti-Jewish.
I'm not changing my philosophy. I'm speaking to people where they're at. So if they don't share,
but might makes right is completely anti-Torah.
Might makes right is completely because it's an argument that what is mighty is right. But most of my audience does not subscribe to Torah. So I want to talk to people who don't subscribe to Torah as well as people who do subscribe to Torah. I want both.
But you don't change a huge Torah belief in order to speak to the goyim. You're a Jew now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
No, it's fine. I don't care.
I'm also a fake Jew. I'm only half a Jew, so.
Well, I don't think I ever actually argue that might makes right. I argue that the mighty take what they want. That's just the reality. It's not something that I'm promoting as right. I don't think I've ever promoted that, mass slaughter is right. I just point out that when people have the ability to do whatever they want, they do whatever they want. And it's only when they are met with equal force or greater force that they temper their agenda. That's the reality. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that's how the world works.
All right. Well, fair enough. It gets a little bit to a point where that gets too refined for me. Then, if you're not going to make it simple enough for me to grasp, then what am I supposed to do? I need things to be simple. Anyway, this will be a good point. This is what I missed about your show. That this would be a good point where 2 or 3 or 4 other people would join in on their idea of what this whole thing would be. And especially, and I regret that I'm not that second person that can bring the third person over. You need that other guy that can spark some more people to come over and start this conversation.
Yes, I do. Me on my own is just nothing compared to the group shows that we used to do. I mean, there's no way around that. Me on my own is like a 1 out of 10 compared to many of the 10 out of 10 experiences that we used to enjoy.
All right. So don't take offense. I forget names, but who always calls in? I actually like when he calls in.
Elliot,
call in now. What do you think about midot? You could be the third guy.
Yeah, Elliot.
And then we can get glib medley and.
Yeah. Every time I do a show,
these are guys with wits about them.
Yeah, every time I do a show, I send out invites to about 12 people. Now, most of them don't show up, but I really do try to bring people onto my show, unless I believe that it'll be bad for them. So most people who want to come on the show, I don't have on my show because I believe it will be bad for them.
What do you mean bad for them in what way?
they will say things that will hurt their life. It will damage their family, their friends, their life prospects. They will regret it, that they don't have the
Well, I've got a
self-discipline.
family. You don't care. You don't care about my family. Is that what you're saying?
No, I believe that you have enough self-control to not say things on the show that are going to devastate your family.
I got kicked off of YouTube, so obviously I don't have the wherewithal when it comes to all that. Anyway, yeah, I hope the best for you. How about this? Maybe not be. Maybe since you already lowered your standards with me, go even lower and build yourself up from there. Like go back to OV, you know, kind of stuff. Or he's desperate to talk to people now. Go, like, just open it up to the bottom of the barrel and build yourself up from that point. And
yeah, but
maybe
is
we'll get
it
back up
moral
to,
to build myself up on other people's misery? Like, some of these people...
No, they love it.
Yeah.
They would love it. I really think that you want to start again where you were with Kevin Michael Grace. There,
Yeah.
I remember the name. You know, he was the top. He was the pinnacle. But you had to you had to build your way up to get to him. So the building crumbled, and now you have to rebuild from the ground up. I think you have to open up. You just at the last half hour of every show, just say, "Hey, here's my link. Anybody can come in. Anything that wants to say anything, and just see what happens." That's my suggestion.
Yeah. But what do you think about the idea that it could be, really dangerous for many of these people? Like, it doesn't necessarily bring out the best.
It'll be
of them.
dangerous for your YouTube career, that's for sure. That'll shorten your YouTube career. Dangerous for other people. Let people be men. Like I'm a man. I make my own decisions. What are you going to do to them? You think too high of yourself. You can influence other people so much.
No, it has nothing to do with me influencing them. It has to do with they can't handle doing live streams and acting in their own best interests. Because doing a live stream tends to bring out the worst in people. People have an exaggerated sense of their own importance. They tend to blurt out things that they wouldn't say face to face. They tend to be attracted to particularly dark subject matters, and they tend to get really attention-seeking and extreme.
These people were. Oh, look, we got. Oh,
whoa, we got Ricardo.
Whoa.
Blessings.
Ricardo, the man.
Dude, Taker, I felt your loneliness. I had to come on and say hello.
He's certainly suffering.
I know. Suffering under the Luke tormenting us with, like, he could just drop the link in the chat and, like, every, the flood of Spurgs would be, there'd be a lot of clean this. There's definitely someone lurking out there, another mentally ill person that provides a ton of entertainment. Like a Gandalf. Like, where's Gandalf at?
Gandalf would join, immediately. Yeah, he'd be good for a while to build off of.
But Ricardo, what if it turned out to not be in the person's best interest? Like, one person who I used to have on regularly on the show, they ended up getting fired from a very prestigious position, not for anything they said on my show, but because it led them to broadcast all sorts of thoughts that got them in trouble.
Well, I think that's fair, but that doesn't mean, like, the first couple times to meet somebody, you have no idea, right? Like, you provide them a platform this platform's not that big. I don't think it's that big.
So
and
wait,
I would just
it's
encourage
not my
people to join
responsibility. Is that what you're saying, Ricardo?
Like I would say with, like, people, I do think there's, like, a certain level of, like, I can imagine, like, after repeated interactions, like, I imagine Norman's not on your mailing list, right?
I've actually sent him a bunch of invites in the past 3 weeks. He hasn't shown up.
Oh, okay. Well, there's you go. I guess he doesn't have much to lose.
Yeah, I was on Norvin's the other day. He asked, he's been sending me invites. And,
Yeah, me too. Me too. I talked to Norvin like 2 months ago. That was a good
we
time.
talked about that tablet article about Eric Kaufman and, God forbid, the Asians outcompeting the Jews, which is something I've been mentioning for quite a while.
Well, Doovid's always right. Is Norvin still? He told me he's become eugenics obsessed. So, who knows? He's like,
Yeah, it looks like his numbers are back to, about the pre-Luke Ford days.
yeah, I would say. Well, he's having all these people on, so at least he's hosting hangouts.
Everyone's numbers are down, so, but you can still find people to talk about these things because, or whatever you're interested in. I've been teaming up with John Wolf. We got some, like dramas. I did a presentation on the dangers of the E-personality. I even threw in Luke an honorable mention on, some news circles.
Nice. Have you been?
I see Ricardo and I see Dooovid together on the Luke Ford show, and I just want to cry. This brings back so many great memories.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it's been 5 years. It's been 5 years that
you guys should never have left one another.
Oh well, you can blame your people, dude. Your people.
Yeah, I didn't go anywhere. Me and Luke have been, grinding it out. So, it's Ricardo who took a hiatus. Like Doovid's been streaming every week for all that time, and Luke has basically been at it multiple times a week the whole time.
Just a couple of Iron Men. No, I flew too close to the sun, and I think that I was lucky to walk away mostly unscathed, unlike someone else.
I got a crazy thing like Luke. If this is interesting, in fact, if you want to, if he I'm gonna have to go in a few minutes, but this man reached out to me, a new convert to Judaism, and he said he converted to Judaism. What led him to converting to Judaism was my debates on Adam Green. He was a former, not a counter-Semite, but conspiracy theorist, and used to watch Adam Green. And then he saw me debating and talking. He started looking more into Judaism, and he's went through like a reform local conversion. And he reached out to me, and we met up the other day. So he wants to stream. So I might stream in a few minutes. Just like teaching the morning prayers, morning blessings. So some positive element that our work has accomplished.
Oh, that's fantastic, Dooovid. I mean, that's an amazing story.
He's an interesting guy. If he he's got like a bus or something, like he's walking his dogs, but he might I invite him to my house, so he might be in any minute. So if he wants to pop on and say hello for a minute, interesting story.
Oh yeah, that's
Judaism
amazing. Go ahead, Pigger.
Judaism hasn't ruined your guys' life enough that you need to bring others in to ruin their life too.
I love Judaism. Like it's tough because Judaism is a religion, and
but does Judaism love you?
Well, so I'm like I still say the prayers. I love being Jewish and doing Jewish things. Being part of a Jewish community is extremely tough. So this was kind of like a godsend. Because most of my pushback comes from fellow Jews, and because it's part of a community, and there's attached politics and perceived friends and enemies and norms, and like you're not the right person to spokesperson for the Jews, and Claire introduced me to this guy the other day. He's out actually in your area, maybe on the West Coast, and I guess he's like know he's a hater, but he's like, you're not giving the message that we want, or like every Jew wants to be like the token Jew for the Goyim, and it's very difficult to get a unified message. So I mean, me and Luke talk about that constantly, and probably Aaron there in Israel. It's hard to be part of a people, but it doesn't change my love of Judaism itself, and also kind of being representative. Each Jew could be a priest to nations on the small level, because all Jews, we're a small people and are constantly running into Goyim who don't know much about Judaism, and have our chance to be representative of the Jews. I think most Jews enjoy doing that.
That's what Judaism is. It's a brotherhood that we can't really belong to.
What do you mean we can't belong to it? I feel like I do belong to it. And what do you mean we can't belong to it, Prager?
Well, I mean, I guess I just personally, I don't feel a connection, and I feel like that they can sniff out the half Jews, like the full Jews. They know who their brothers are, and who's the mixed breeds.
Well,
yeah,
sectarianism.
Yeah, that definitely makes it more challenging. But I think that loneliness and feeling apart from others is a pattern that some people just get ingrained in their neuroscience. So the way that they respond is ingrained in a method that isolates them. So I still think that converts and people with like one Jewish parent and one Gentile parent can still make it in Orthodox Judaism. It just may be a little more challenging. But I think ultimately, if people aren't comfortable in Orthodox Judaism, then it's primarily has something to do with their own inability to live in close, intense community. It's not really on the community. It's really an individual matter of how they become wired to relate to people.
Hold on, brother. Hey, Mike, I'm online with my buddy Luke Ford from Los Angeles, Hollywood. If you want to say hi for a minute, he's a veteran streamer. He's actually talked with Adam Green. I booked him, and he's been talking to counter Semites, and he's actually a porn blogger.
Right on.
And then he's had an interest in like white nationalism. He's been talking to big names, and he streams constantly. He's there in Hollywood. He's a convert to Orthodox Judaism.
Yeah.
You can sit down for a second.
Yeah, I got the coffee.
Okay, yeah, sure. He actually he's got recording equipment, so kind of excited. This guy got his own recording equipment. I'll let you.
That's great. We can learn from him. He's going to make our community stronger. Wow, look at that. This guy really knows.
Serious stuff.
Yeah. This guy knows what he's doing. We should learn from him.
I said that to Luke, and Aaron, almost all Jews disagree with me, but my experience is like half of converts to Judaism start out as kind of like counter Semites, and even Bali Tshuva, it's a lot of the skeptics that become the that change their mind, because the skepticism is what causes a person to look so into it. I let appreciate it. Just got more stuff to bring you. Always take his shoes off, so I'll let Mike pop in here for a second. Interesting story. He's got a bus that he calls the portable shul, and he was driving around the country. Magic shul bus. He's kind of like a former drug addict, but now he's for Brent, Jew, and he loves Judaism. So
Fabrenta Jew means passionate. Fabrenta is
Yiddish.
Hey, what up, bro? How's it going?
Hello, shalom.
Shalom. So what led you to want to convert to Judaism?
Well, it's a long story, but I began about 7 or 8 years ago. I began an exploration with psilocybin, lysergic acid, dimethyltryptamine, shamanic and theogenic experiences. I was raised Catholic, spent most of my life I declared at the time as an atheist, but I was really just a confused skeptic. But was very pragmatic. Didn't buy into dogma, conventional ideas, religions, all that type of stuff. Thought the Abrahamic religions was just people that bought into it were just delusional. But after years of shamanic experiences at deep, deep levels, I came to understand that that simply put, I was wrong. I was very wrong. There was much I didn't know about spirituality, about religion, about monotheistic understanding of creation. And slowly, it took years and years, but my heart began to soften. And eventually, found my way into a local neighborhood shul, synagogue, and began sojourning and began my journey, and was met with the most wonderful, amazing people you could possibly want to meet. So
wow.
My journey into Judaism has been a beautiful one, and I can't be more thankful to be where I'm at now. So
wow. And what effect has it had on you making this journey?
Well, I mean, an inner peace and an outer peace like I've never known before. Most of my life I've struggled with, like most folks, I've struggled with all sorts of issues and problems and anxieties and depressions and blah, blah, blah. And, the more stubborn I became in my younger years toward accepting the love of my Heavenly Father, the more that I fought that, the more that I resisted that, the more corroded I became inside. And even the last couple of years before I found my way into Judaism, consuming, counter-Semitic, anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist type, consuming that type of media only rotted me out further. And like I said, my journey into Judaism has just been filled with wonderful people, love, and a deeper understanding about life.
Do you know what switched you from the counter-Semite to the philo-Semite? Can you remember what shifted you?
Well, I mean, yeah.
I told him it was me. He reached out to me, but maybe it wasn't just me. He said he saw me on Adam Green. That's how he came onto my content.
Well, yeah. That's how I became aware of Dooovid here was, every so often on Adam Green's podcast, Dooovid would come on, for respectful discussion and debate. And I always liked the way he carried himself, and the way he represented Jews, and it left a very good impression with me early on. But the reality, though, what really turned me, though, was, like I said, my deep entheogenic experiences, specifically with psilocybin, and their deep visionary experiences. And it's hard to talk about, but it was my shamanic experiences that really kind of flipped the switch for me. So
yeah, so you moved out of your habitual ways of thinking and experiencing life and moved into a whole new realm, I assume, that you had not experienced before.
Absolutely, yes.
So your conversion is complete? You're already a converted Jew?
So yeah, so I, on the 11th of Nisan 5782, which would have been April 12th of...
Just to tell Michael, that's Aaron in Jerusalem. So you're talking to Aaron in Jerusalem and Luke in Hollywood.
Beautiful. Shalom, brothers. I went through I spent about a year in the program, and went to the mikveh just a little over a year ago. Now, I went through a conservative conversion program, and I still have much to learn, long way to go. I'm still working on my Hebrew and my fluidity. I want to get into chanting. Hopefully with the help of Dooovid here, I'll go further with that. But I'm sure, as you both know, there's much to be learned. So it's a lifetime pursuit. But yeah, it was about a year ago I went to the mikveh.
And what's it like?
Why do you have to be a Jew?
I'm sorry?
Why do you have to be a Jew? Why can't you just read the Torah, be inspired with it? Why do you have to be a Jew specifically?
Why do I have to be a Jew specifically? Well,
you could still be inspired by a lot of teachings. It could affect your life. You don't need to be a Jew.
Well, it ties into it. It's a long conversation, and I don't know if you folks, if you have any experience with psychedelics and theogenics, but it's a long conversation. It really is. It's a calling. It's very personal to me. Things that happen inside of my psychedelic experiences urged me to walk this path. And this wasn't an overnight thing. It wasn't like I took mushrooms one night and then all of a sudden overnight I said, that's it. I'm going to become a Jew. That's my calling. It was years and years and years of waking up, opening my heart. I'm sorry.
I've been living in Israel for 20 years, and I can say that it would take a guy to take mushrooms in order to convert to Judaism. That's what it looks like to me. Like
Sure.
that's what it would need.
Well, whatever, I like I said, I was raised in a Catholic household, but dogma never, I just simply reading words was not enough for me. I needed to take it a step further, and I'm trying to find community with other Jews who have similar experiences to myself, or even converts who have a similar story to mine. I know when I tell people that I largely converted due to psychedelic experiences, it's a little baffling to them. Most people drift, I think, more toward Eastern religions as opposed to Judaism. I've never met another person who's converted to Judaism as a result of taking mushrooms. So, but it's a deeply focused.
That's the only explanation I could understand.
Sure.
But Piggy, he's already made the move. I mean, it's like you're telling someone.
He's made some moves, but there's still hope. He's just did a conservative conversion. It doesn't count.
Wait, hang on, Pigger. It does count for millions and millions of Jews. Most Jews in the world will accept him as Jewish, and he's already married Judaism. Like what you're saying is the equivalent of a guy who's gotten married. And then you tell him 6 months after the wedding, why the hell did you marry this woman? Once you've gotten married, it's not a very nice thing to say to someone you shouldn't have married that person.
I'm telling you that the priest that married you is just like some guy that worked in Las Vegas. He's not a real priest that married you.
That Pigger, that's a horrible thing to say. It's a rabbi, and it's someone who has accepted. Millions of Jews in the world accept this guy's conversion. And so you're not even practice Orthodox Judaism. So go ahead.
And it's Judaism near where he came from. So it's saying that those are the Jews of the community that he's part of.
This is what I feel sorry for him for, like to get involved with us.
Why?
Why
would you feel sorry? Why?
He seems like a nice guy to me.
Why do you feel sorry for him? Because you have trouble with Jews. Why do you think he will?
He blames his failures in life on Judaism. God forbid. I mean, Aaron is a
I see what it is. It's a tribe.
His failures in life on Judaism instead of himself.
No, I blame my failures on myself. Thank you very much. But Jews are a tough people to get along with. You guys can't say differently.
No, that's true. The Jews are challenging people.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. That's basically my only point. Why get involved with such difficult people when you have such nice going? They're so nice to be with.
Brother, I love the Jew style, man. And the funny thing is, throughout all my counter-Semitic years, I was frothing at the mouth with all of this corrosion in my heart, and didn't realize that all of my favorite musicians, entertainers, filmmakers, authors, everything. I looked around and I was going, I truly love the Jewish people, and I wasn't sure where this was coming from, but something.
I think you're talking to Luke Ford, our man in Hollywood.
Something was disconnected there, and finally I woke up and said, this is not the right way. This is not the way to truth, and that's what I seek ultimately. That's where this journey started. Truth. Truth seeker.
Well, what you could do is go to the center of the truth, to Israel, and then all those artists that you fell in love with, they don't exist in Israel. So
maybe one day you'll talk more with Luke.
Then you can get that idea.
I'll let you borrow Luke Ford's book if you want, but I mean, he's been in Hollywood for like 20 years.
For sure. for sure.
Maybe he's going to have a different Jewish experience than you've had, Prager.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we're just exchanging our personal experiences. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the last word on everything, of course.
Well, and I'm willing to go as deep as required, because the not to get too
That's
far
what I'm
ahead
afraid
of, the end goal is to get to Israel. That is to get to Yerushalayim. That is the end goal. That is whether it's to go there for a few years or to spend the remainder of my life there. I need to make my first Aliyah and go home. That's very important to me. So if I
do that first,
I'm not sure right now where it stands. I don't know because I'm totally willing to convert Orthodox at some point if necessary. Not even so much for acceptance by the community, but if that's what's required at some point to immigrate and to get to Israel, then I'll do what's required. So,
what do you think about the idea that
How
Jews
he
are
feels after
difficult
he-
people?
This guy's trolling, right? This guy's got to be trolling.
No,
I mean, come on, man.
this is
Come
fair
on,
dinkum.
man. Come on, man.
Rendell's in mid-America, and he's just like a high IQ businessman who married a half Jew.
Dude, I'm more
And
Jewish
he also
than this
like
guy.
loves counter-Semitic content, but his son is a quarter Jew, and
No,
he's
that's not
actually
even
the one who
true.
introduced
That's not
me
even true.
to speak to all the counter-Semites. So like the reason you met Dooovid is because of Luke Ford, and I mean Ricardo is actually he hides his identity, but
But like, how did you like end up like watching? You've done all this learning about these people, and you're like, you know what? Like, the more I learn, the more I just want to be on their team. It's. I mean, even Pigger's appalled.
I'm talking from the source, man.
He's talking from pain.
Jerusalem. It's not a coincidence that we've met.
No.
Ricardo, have you taken psychedelics? Maybe if you took some, you would convert to Judaism as well.
No, but it is funny. I think Aaron's right on, hits that nail on the head when he says that, like, that's what it would take. I mean, that's what it would take. I mean, something tells me this is going to be a very temporary thing, and there's like another phase coming.
he found Reb Dooovid. Like if he found his way to Reb Dooovid, like he's probably going to make his way in Judaism.
Yeah. Also, I gotta say, like, Mazel Tov to Dooovid for managing, for going on. Does Adam Green know that he like led someone to Judaism? Does he know that?
I called
point of that show.
the first time we met. I called Adam Green, like, he never met Adam. He just listened to him. And I told Adams, like, this guy's listening to your show. He's a Jew now. And hopefully Mike is going to be on the Adam Green show and tell about his experience. Like, stick it to all the counter Semites. Like, Dooovid now is teaming up with new recruit Jews.
All right, well, this is too funny. Luke, this is why you bring people on, okay? To Pigger's point. And Pigger says that he's not the guy to bring people on. This is all him. So congratulations, Pigger.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Have you experienced Jews as a difficult people, Mike? Has that been your experience?
No, not at all. No.
How many Jews do you know?
Well, I mean, I'm speaking solely on the folks at my local congregations.
I meant guys, not women. Women shouldn't come on.
But no, my experiences with other Jews that I've met have been the most. If there were ever such an ambassador for God's people, it's the Jewish folks I've met.
And Claire, Khaw, is there anything you've heard so far that you want to comment on?
London.
Well, I was just wondering. Okay, this is what I've heard. What an Orthodox rabbi saying, and he's saying these Gentiles who convert to Judaism, they don't realize what's going to happen to them, because it's like we Jews, we get punished for all these things that for them is perfectly okay, like breaking the Sabbath and all kinds of stuff, and and they won't be able to adapt, and they don't understand, and then I guess if God exists, you're just going to be punished for all the stuff. And the 36 capital offenses. And okay, this is an ultra Orthodox rabbi, and basically, the ultra Orthodox basically regard the Reform Jews as heretics. So I don't know if you know that. I mean, I didn't realize that for ages. I was kind of trying to work out, studying, Jews, and it wasn't until years later that I was talking to an ultra-Orthodox rabbi, and he said, well, we regard them as heretics.
So, Mike, how do you deal with the dissension in Jewish life, where Jews often have very strong views about what it means to be Jewish and what's the appropriate approach to Torah and to Judaism, and often very passionately disagree with each other and may call someone a bigot or a heretic or whatever?
That's the thing. I mean, I come from a very unorthodox place to entering into, because most of the converts I meet, they were raised in a fundamentally, Christian household. They were Christians most of their lives, and they just felt something was off in Christianity and made kind of a clean jump from one Abrahamic faith to the next. And my story is not like that at all. And I don't hide them that I'm a convert, and I don't hide my origin story. In fact, I'm very open and forthcoming about it. But it can be, I mean, I've always been welcomed and welcomed receptively, but that is the one, I don't want to say the one kind of disconnect, but I'm trying to find, not trying to find, but to me, there is a definitive connection within the psychedelic experience. I mean, transcendental experience in general. If you really, and this is something I want to get further in with Dooovid, but if you really want the definitive answer on what flipped the switch and got me into a Jewish mindset, and one of my particular visionary experiences, I, with complete clarity and lucidity, had interpreted visions of the Shield of David, and that, in the moment, unequivocally told me that the Jews are God's chosen people on this planet, deputies, if you will. It doesn't make us better than anyone, but we have a special role here on this planet. We are emissaries, and Torah is God's truth to his people and to the world. But it is, like I said, my story is not common. So, like I said, I've always been welcomed warmly, but currently I do practice my own sort of flavor and blend of Judaism, and I try not to get hung up too much on what other people think about it. I don't talk about it. I don't preach. And that's what I love about the Jewish people too. I don't feel the need to convert anyone, bring anybody else into this, talk anybody else into this. I don't share this with people unless prompted. I love talking about it, and I'm proud of where I am and who I am, but I don't
push it on anyone.
Sure.
We're inviting you. You're an honored guest here. Have you been circumcised?
Yes.
And what was that like?
Well, that happened at birth, so.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that could be very
that's a relief.
Sure.
Can I ask one little question? Did you consider anything else behind Islam? Other
yes.
kinds?
Well, yeah. So I spent several years exploring a lot of different faiths, spiritualities, even my own special blend of I don't know, a solipsistic type worldview. I explored a lot. I come from a background of shamanism and visionary experiences. I used to frequent a earth-based church here in Metro Detroit, where we would have our mushroom ceremonies and stuff like that, so I'm a big Terrence McKenna listener, years listening to Leary and Ram Dass, and I've explored a lot of different pathways, and I still don't know where exactly I stand on that with regard to, Torah is truth, and I'm proud to be a Jew, but I'm not ready at the same time, though, to unequivocally say it's the only way, because that is, I'm not confident enough to say that. I don't know that. I know that Torah is truth and that Torah is the way and through Hashem, but at the same time, I'm not willing to discredit anything else.
Mm-hmm.
What is a ger? I mean, what is, darn it. But yeah, so what's a ger?
What is a ger?
Yeah.
Is that it's not a, is it's not a, is that not a convert, but someone who observes and sojourns with the Jewish people, but isn't necessarily
Right. That's what we call the converts.
Yeah, the ger is the convert, and then there's also another category, the righteous who don't want to convert, but they want to the followers of the Noahide laws.
Yeah, but what we're really saying is a convert is someone who is just on the outside.
What do you mean just on the outside? Plenty of converts are very much on the inside of Judaism. A lot
But
of converts.
that's the meaning of ger. You should be kind to the ger because you were a ger in Egypt.
Oh, stranger. So there's words have many different meanings. So one word for the ger can mean stranger, and we've all known the experience of being strangers. So that's one basis for the Jewish teaching that you should be kind to converts because they come in as strangers joining our community, and we've all had the experience of being strangers, and it's frequently an unpleasant one.
Me and Luke Ford have talked
when it
hundreds
says
of hours, and one of the main things we mentioned, I was telling Mike, when we first, Judaism is a religion more of practice, not belief. But like as a convert, Michael's a believer, and so he has a connection to God and interacting with God as a Jew, and maybe interacting with other people, feeling as a Jew. As where most Jews, it's just tribal and about practice, not belief. And so that's like a dynamic. And maybe Luke is not so much more believer, more practicer, and has fallen into like the Jewish people. But I was mentioning it to Michael, his dynamic, and you're saying like he believes in God, even though like belief isn't that key part of Judaism.
Right. So most Jews don't talk a lot about their personal relationship with God. But for me, it was a huge thing in my first few years in Judaism. But then I moved towards more of a tribal relationship. But there's room in Judaism for many different approaches. Mike, is there anything you've heard that you'd like to comment on?
No, not in particular, not at this time.
Claire, anything you've heard you'd like to comment on?
I was just wondering about being a Noahide. Did you ever consider being a Noahide and just staying a Noahide?
No, it never even crossed my mind, for the simple fact that the way that I'm put together, it's when I become convicted about something and it's important to me, like I said, eventually I plan to get to Israel. So it's everything for me, and it's the focal point of my life. So and I'm not trying to insinuate that being a Noahide is only going halfway. But for me, I wanted to take it all the way.
Mm-hmm. Have you been to Israel?
I have not, no.
But you want to go and live there?
Most certainly.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Piggy, you've lived there for 20 years. It's been a blessing, right?
Oh, how do I save this boy? How do I save you? You seem like such a nice man. And there's still, what are you in your mid-30s?
35.
I got it perfectly. You still have a chance, man. You could turn away. Live look. We're supposed to be or the goyim, right?
Light unto the nations.
Light unto the nations. You could be one of the nations. You don't need to be the light. What is a light? Like you're in a dark room, a light goes on. Big deal. You could be a part of that room. You could be cooking dinner in your kitchen or something. Not just turning on the light.
He's already gotten married. He's already gotten married to the religion. He can't leave now. He's in it. He's 100%.
No, he didn't. Everybody in Israel will tell you you're safe. Even like the secular Jews will tell you. 80% of Jews will say. 90% of Jews will say you're safe. You're not a Jew yet. He can't claim citizenship.
Yes, he can. He can make aliyah. He can claim Israeli citizenship. So
as a conservative,
as a convert to conservative or even Reform Judaism, he can claim citizenship.
I know fairly recently. I know there was some. I'm sure one of you can clarify more, but there was some changes, some court rulings and stuff like that, where I guess they agreed to be a little more lenient on conversions and where it's done and stuff like that for immigration. But
yeah, I read that too, that you can convert just to Reform Judaism, and the religious Jews were up in arms.
Sure.
But he recognizes that being Jewish is not an easy path, and so if he has to undergo some more rigorous tests, I mean, Mike, you seem quite up for whatever tests come your way in your Jewish journey.
For sure, absolutely.
I mean, you understand this isn't
Dooovid.
an easy life.
Dooovid.
Absolutely,
Just
whatever
look at
comes my
Doovid's
way,
life
adversity, whatever
run.
comes my way, I'm ready to take it on.
But not everyone
You-
chooses the easy path. Like some people like to choose the challenging path. But go ahead, Claire.
Oh, this is a burning question about my kind of equating dropping acid with converting to Judaism, and I kind of wanted to know more about that. Unless he's already answered the question, but I didn't.
Well, I think it just opened up. I'll speak for you, Mike, and then you can add to it if you care to or correct me. But taking psychedelics opened up possibilities to you. It opened up neural pathways. It kind of cleaned away some habitual patterns of thinking and relating to the world, to the universe, that then placed you in a place where you could consider possibilities that you never could have considered before. Is that fair, Mike?
Couldn't have said it couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely.
Luke, come on. You see Mike here. Such a nice boy. Look at yourself at 35. You wouldn't want to tell him to turn away from all this?
Absolutely not. I'm very happy with my
Oh
conversion
my
to
God.
Judaism. It initially happened at age 27, but I decided at age 22 that was the direction I was going to go.
Me and Luke have agreed on this point that not a single person told me becoming an Orthodox Jew was a good decision. In fact, almost everyone who knew me well tried to talk me out of it, but I consider it the best decision I ever made. And I think Luke agreed on that point.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey. Jewish life is very intense and it's very challenging, but it's also equally rewarding.
For sure.
Kind of strange that. Okay, never mind.
And
Go ahead.
Mike, what do you think about the idea that Jews don't seek converts? Because most religions do seek converts, but Jews are unusual in that they not only don't seek converts, they tend to take a lot of steps to discourage converts.
I mean, there's a reason for that. This is the Judaism in particular, I think even within the context of the Abrahamic faiths, is the hardest to it's the hardest to digest for the simple fact that it's incredibly abstract, right? I mean, even the information that is contained in Torah, the information that is contained in the wisdom of the pages, it's not easily digestible for most people. It's a calling. It's a very small percentage of people that are, I don't want to say worthy, but that are willing to, adhere to the observances, the practices, the laws, the codes, like you were talking about. It's not easy being a Jew, and you don't, I really appreciate that about my Jewish brothers and sisters, that I mean, I was welcomed with open arms, but I have friends that have gone to Orthodox shuls, and yeah, they're a little more reticent about bringing them in, or they really want to make sure that, they want to make sure that you're not a flake too. They want to make sure you don't come in, screw up, you come around for a little while, go to the mikveh, and then, you flake out on them. So I think it's fine. I like I don't even like to say exclusionary aspect of it, but we want the best and the brightest. We want those who are determined, disciplined, and willing to, I don't know, willing to be full bore about everything. So
yeah, I thought it really attracted me that they weren't seeking converts. I remember when I told my dad when I finally finished my conversion, he said, "Well, they're certainly not like the Seventh-day Adventists out there trying to convert people." So I respect and like that Jews don't seek converts. I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And how have your non-Jewish friends and family reacted to your conversion?
Absolutely wonderful. Nothing but support and love. I was, be honest with you, I mean, I was a little nervous at first to tell my parents because, you know, my dad anyway is very born again. You know, and I wasn't sure how they'd respond to it. And they were incredibly, all my friends and family were incredibly supportive, wonderful. And anyone that wasn't willing to be supportive, you know, doesn't have a place in my life anymore. If they're not willing to at least, you know, say good for you, brother. And, you know, God bless. But no, everyone's been great. I haven't,
So
and
they're,
go ahead.
They're thinking that Judaism is better than drugs, but they're wrong.
Well, no, I mean, my dad was, because like I said, I spent my teens and early 20s as just an stubborn, just ardent, you know, there is no God, there is no deeper meaning to life, there is no divine creation behind existence, there is no telos to life. And my dad, when I told him I was converting, he was so thankful that he didn't care what it was. He was so thankful that I had found, you know, peace in communion with the divine. So my parents were incredibly supportive. Baruch Hashem.
Pigger, when did you become so negative about the tribe? When did you turn?
I try to love the tribe. I know you're supposed to love the tribe. That's my biggest problem with loving the tribe. I love God. I love Israel. Come on, the tribe is a pain in the butt. How are they not? They're awful. They're not friendly. They're not good. They're not interesting even. They're awful.
But when did you have this realization? Have you always known this, or does this happen recently?
I've always tuned into Jews, I guess, less than I've always thought the Christians were nicer than Jews. I thought my dad's side of the family was nicer than my mom's side of the family. They were more sane than my mom's side of the family.
And what about the difference between Israeli Jews and American Jews? How would you describe that? You've lived in Israel for approximately 20 years.
Between Woody Allen and Rambo, I guess. That's the difference.
So the Israeli Jews are more intense.
Hold my gun, I need a pee.
Yeah.
What?
Israeli Jews are more intense. They're more hardcore, more committed.
Yeah, I mean, like the army is. I think the army is getting fake, but for a long time, the army wasn't a fake thing. Like you go to the army, there's a chance you're going to see some action, and the action is meaningful. You're actually defending your homeland, and that has a profound effect about your character. And it's one of the reasons why I tuned in to this form of Judaism, the national Judaism. But yeah, that would be the difference.
And what about honesty in business? Do you encounter more honesty in business from the tribe or from, say, Christians?
The way I feel about Jews is that Jews take it to the extreme. So you can get like an extremely honest Jew, an extreme crook, and the Goyim are more in the center.
Okay, yeah, those extremes. And Mike, did you find that some of your non-Jewish friends or family found it threatening at all that you converted to this what would be a strange religion?
No. I mean, I've definitely gotten strange looks from people on the peripheral of my life, but the core folks in my life, no, they were incredibly supportive.
Can I talk to your parents?
He's kidding. How did you get off hard drugs, Mike?
Well, to be fair, and I'm not. See, I like to distinguish a little more nuance when because drugs is a pejorative, right? I don't even care for the term drugs. I don't smoke crack. I don't use heroin. I don't smoke meth or fentanyl. I'm not a drug user. You know, I'm a hippie. I love my cannabis, mushrooms, DMT, acid, little MDMA. I'm very recreational too, and disciplined about how I do these things. You know, so this is a shamanic experiment for me. This is not like, you know, I wasn't on the streets when I was a teenager smoking crack. You know, it's not like I was a drug addict like that. So this is a deep, serious practice for me.
And was there a time when it wasn't a deep, serious practice? In other words, have you done these shamanic recreational substances wrong? And have you also done them right? And can you delineate the difference between doing these substances right and wrong?
Yeah, the first few years of experimentation, going to parties, hanging out with unsavory people, doing unsavory things. I've done it wrong as well, and it's terrifying.
So what can you tell people about the right ways and the wrong ways to do these substances?
Well, you know, you hear a lot of conversation about set and setting, you know, which is important. You know, because I mean, it's enjoyable to take mushrooms, but it's a deep spiritual practice, you know, and you can use it for a variety of things. It can be for self-improvement, spiritual depth, you know, trauma, you know, pain relief at lower doses, whatever you're, you know, but have a somewhat noble intention as to why you're doing what you're doing, instead of just to go out on Friday night and get effed up, you know, and to do it in a peaceful, relaxing, comfortable setting, you know, plenty of water, you know, just, yeah, set and setting is important. You don't have to be because people are often, they get this confused, or you have to be in the perfect mindset and you got to be in a good attitude and all this type of stuff to engage in these experiences. That's not true. But you do need to have some maturity about what you hope to get out of this, set intentions about where you hope to go. And for me, like I said, when I started taking mushrooms and psychedelics, this wasn't, you know, I want to find God, I want to, you know, find truth. It was honestly just, I serendipitously found LSD and started tripping a little bit. And it was just, at first it was kind of fun. But then the more I got into it and the more I peeled back, the more I kept finding breadcrumb trails from the divine source of life. And I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't go back to sleep. So what I will say though, is that before I got into psychedelics, I did lead a more unhealthy life. I used to consume alcohol more, you know, party, get in trouble, you know, find myself in the emergency room every now and again, doing stupid stuff. And when I started taking psychedelics, it very quickly caused me to reform my life. And it's funny because back in the 50s and 60s, for the short period of time that LSD was still legal and was being used by psychiatrists, it was a tool for a short period to reform people's behaviors and attitudes, given to drug addicts, alcoholics, things that schizophrenics, to readjust and refocus their perception in their life. Because it does really, if you do it the right way and you take enough, it will really cause you, there's a lot of self-reflection that goes on, cause you to want to clear your life out and clean yourself up.
Wow. And how about frequency? What have you found is an ideal sweet spot frequency for imbibing these substances?
Well, honestly, the older I get, the less and less I do it now. My high dose experimentation days are largely behind me. These days, maybe every few months, you know, I'll get into, and I don't take shamanic level half ounce, 3/4 ounce doses anymore. It's every couple of weeks, few months, whatever. I'll have a gram here, I'll have a gram there, you know, and just meditation. I incorporate a lot of Jewish practice now into my experiences, which is beautiful. So it's fairly infrequent now. Judaism has largely taken the place of, and that's my aim. I desire to reach transcendental levels through Judaism comparable to what I would experience on the mushrooms. That's my goal.
Oh my God.
And how have you found any vehicles towards that? For some people it might be study of Torah, for some people it might be prayer, for other people it might be meditation, for other people it might be extreme exercise. What are some non-substance vehicles to transcendence that work for you?
Chanting, singing, Hebrew, Torah. Like I said, that is because sound is such a crucial component of, I mean, creation in general, but it's sound is an eternal transcendental vehicle to connect with the divine. And I've always been very musically inclined and with sound and everything. So my goal is to, and I've only just doing the Shema, because every once in a while I'll go to shul, I'll take the Torah out, I'll do the Shema, and that it is in itself, feeling the vibration, chanting the Hebrew, it's on another level. It's visionary. So that is my goal, to become fluent enough and proficient enough with my Hebrew to chant. And yeah, that's my
What
vehicle.
about congregational singing, when you're all singing in tune, swaying in tune? Is that a transcendental experience? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Luke,
yes,
I'm going to bounce.
Okay, bro.
Thanks for inviting me. I just want to leave how I started. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Almond Joy has nuts, Mounds don't, but they both have coconut, so it's all nuts.
Beautiful words to live by. Thanks, Prager. Claire, you've been listening for a while. Is there anything you want to weigh in on? Okay, I guess Claire's fallen asleep. But do you have any favorite chants or passages of the Torah, Mike, that particularly move you?
I mean, like I said, I'm still very rudimentary in my Hebrew and my chanting. The Shema still just is for me is electric when I recite that, especially holding the Torah in front of the congregation.
Can you recite it for us?
I'm sorry?
Can you recite it for us?
Well, sure. Yeah, for sure. I can just the opening line too. Just the opening line. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Wow, that was powerful. And you're clearly musical. So
yeah, chanting that's where I want to get. So I'm trying to consume as much information as I can, literature, mentors around me, so that I can proficiently get to that point where I'm chanting and yeah, fluidly.
Thank you.
And do you have a reaction, Mike, to all the Jews who have kind of a befuddlement about converts? Many Jews think, why on earth would you do this to yourself?
No, I understand that my position and where I come from. I understand this is all, it's a little weird, and I don't expect people to accept me. The only thing I expect is respect. I don't expect people to understand. That's what I say too, because I come from the other side of the fence, because I used to be a disbeliever, because I used to carry doubt in my heart. I understand where the atheists come from. I still understand where the counter-Semites and the anti-Zionists come from. I feel sorry for them, and I feel forgiveness in my heart for them, but I don't hold it against those who hate me or don't accept me, or not everyone's gonna like you. Not everyone's gonna accept you for who you are or who you think you are. So, I just try to carry myself the best that I can each day, and that's the thing too. Not preaching about what I believe or what I read or what I do, just carrying myself with love and light and treating people with respect, and hopefully that radiates outward.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to start to wrap up the show. Any final words? Anything you want to add, Mike?
No, sir.
Okay, great to talk to you. And
likewise.
And
speak to Luke, good karma here. Power of the streaming. So I just met Mike. He reached out to me, and we might stream on my channel, maybe even today, and go over some of these basic prayers.
Great. So look forward to that. Claire, any final words from you for today?
No, thank you for having me. It's been quite an experience. So thanks again, Luke, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.